woman's essence is magnetic. This is powerfully true during the beautiful years of menstruation or moontime. It is said that during this time, a woman is very intuitive and receptive to receive vision and answers, as the veil between this third dimension and the higher dimensions becomes very fine. A woman becomes extremely powerful during this time of her mooning, as her body, mind, and spirit are in a natural state of purification and receptivity. It is good to understand that during moontime, a woman's energy reverses and moves in a downward spiral as she becomes a conduit for the flow of energy from the grandmother moon into the mother earth. A woman's physical body is a beautiful representation of this flow of energy as her blood flows downward from the uterus toward the earth. It is a traditional practice when a woman is on her moontime to retire into a moon lodge. A woman's time within the moon lodge has traditionally been used to vision, craft, learn, and enjoy the company of other women. Over her lifetime, as a woman moves through her moon cycles, she will arrive at menopause and enter her second spring. At this blessed moment, she rises within the moon lodge as grandmother, elder, wisdom keeper. As an honored, wise woman of the circle, she is looked to for guidance, comfort, and teachings. The moon lodge is a place of retreat, of relaxation, and of nurturing. It is a place to find security, wisdom, inspiration, teachings, and peace. It is a place women support one another and set a powerful example of beauty and power for the young maidens and girls who will grow to be women in a good way within the sacred embrace of the moon lodge. Ultimately, the moon lodge is a circle of celebration, a circle of beauty, a circle of power. It is a place to honor all that is good and natural. The moon lodge is a place to remember and share in the ancient ways of our grandmothers and honor the next 7 generations with wisdom, love, responsibility, and awakened consciousness. Well, hello everyone, and welcome, 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 and happy Monday. Please bring your cameras up if you're in a place that you can do that so I can see you. We can interact more readily. Welcome, Bhavya. Guy, so good to have you here. Josie, Lisa, Michelle, Shelley, Yvonne, all who are here, welcome. I'm Diana Aldrich, for those who've not met me yet, and we're going to talk today about a topic I'm passionate about, and that is the ancient and ageless traditional women's teachings. As we move through our cycles from child to maiden to mother and into our crone years, and such a significant part of that is our cycling, is our moon time, our menses as women, and the power that comes with that, the responsibility that comes with that time, and how we pass in a good way this experience of femininity, of womanhood, of health to our daughters, our granddaughters, the next 7 generations. And so I have a lot of beautiful women in the circle with me today, but I also want to acknowledge the men who are going to be here with us today, and the priceless and important and precious role that men play as part of our menstruating years and our cycling years. and the powerful role that men as fathers and grandfathers and brothers and uncles and husbands play in their sister, daughter, wives' journey through her cycles of time. So welcome to both the men and the women who will be joining us today. Really important that we all understand these teachings because they really reflect a woman's ultimate health. Our health as women is intricately linked to our menses and the health of our menses, the health of our blood, the regularity of our cycle, how that moves our emotions, how our hormones affect our health not only emotionally but certainly physically but also mentally, our sleep patterns. So I can go on, and I will through our time here together. But I want to give you a little bit of background about me. But first, I would like to hear a little bit about you in the chat. If you could just put in where you're coming from, where you're living at this time, and what brings you today. What inspired you to be present and learn and hear and share. So let me bring my chat up. And the sun coming in right through this big central skylight here in the yurt, so as it moves around, I'll try to stay in the where you can see me best. So in the chat, please, where are you from and what brings you today? Coming in from Calgary, 2 daughters, a 17-year-old and a 21-year-old. Beautiful, Yvonne. Thank you for being here. The Moon Lodge is a place really where our daughters, where our young women, girls learn what it means to step into the responsibility of womanhood. And in a traditional Moon Lodge, as our girls come into their first menstrual cycle, it's a celebration. It's a point in time when the family, the community, steps forward and recognizes this moment of her coming into her womanhood. And not only is it a celebration, but it's a time of deep teaching so that she understands the responsibility of her role now that her body has matured into a time of being able to bear a child and become a mother. And all that comes with the responsibility of sexuality and taking care of the health of your body and your relationships on all levels. So to have 2 daughters, so exciting, Yvonne, and so much responsibility that comes with that. Bhavya is coming in from Illinois, Guy from Florida, Josie is coming in from the UK, mother of Saphira, age 6. Josie says she's now 51, post-menopause, and loving being an older mom. Yeah, fantastic. We're going to talk about menopause also in a beautiful book that I'm going to share with you a few times today. Ancient Healing for Modern Women, Traditional Chinese Medicine for All Phases of a Woman's Life. She refers to menopause as our second spring. And I just love that. It's really a time when we can step once again into a newness of our power. And so beautiful. Lisa, coming nearby in Monona. Yes, Lisa, welcome. She's a neighbor of mine and a beloved friend. She has a daughter 7 and a son 9. 3 nieces and approaching her mid-40s, so finding a different flow each month. Yeah, it can come as early as our early 40s or as late as our 60s. So finding these cycles. And in the Moon Lodge, our daughters have their very first rite of passage when they turn 7. And they move from that time of being a child and dependency into their first years of really being responsible for their education, for their learning, maybe for chores, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, all coming around that age of 7. But the foundational years where they're just absorbing everything that we give them by way of example as mothers, as women, as carrying the responsibility of the feminine. They're receiving all of that. And at 7 years old, the mind and the body starts to become ready for some responsibility. Not all of the responsibility yet that they'll receive later, but that first rite of passage where they begin to understand that they're responsible for their own power. And within the Moon Lodge, we bring them into the center of the ceremonial circle. We wrap them in a yellow shawl, their first traditional shawl, and we sing their song for them and with them. And so it's a real act of courage when she takes that step into the center and recognizes that we see her fully in all of her beauty and all of her power. So those of you who have daughters 6, 7 in that range, start to consider that this is actually the beginning of her mooning years. It's the beginning of her menstrual cycle. She hasn't started bleeding yet, but she's starting to recognize that she needs to be seen by others, but also see herself. And that's how she'll be able to care for herself most fully as she ages. Yvonne, I'm an older mom too, 55. My kids kept me young. Indeed they do. Let's see. Guy is here to see if there's more information that I have not learned. I hope so, and please ask questions, both Guy and all of you as we go. Drop your questions into the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them as we move along. Shelley's from Door County, Wisconsin, 2 daughters, ages 9 and 12, and a niece, age 7. Beautiful. Welcome, Shelley. Yvonne, were you wanting to record? I was, and I'm still paused. Oh,
recording in progress.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Yvonne. My audio is on. Yvonne's been with me before on these. So Yvonne, oh my gosh, so much gratitude. Thank you. And Shelley, I'm 41, love feeling empowered when I'm menstruating. Indeed, our menstruation is a time of power. I'm going to get deep into those teachings as we go today. It's also a time of visioning. Traditionally, women entered into a moon lodge because of that power, and I'll explain that more soon. And because it's a time that dimension and this third dimension becomes very fine for a woman. It thins. And so we vision quest essentially every month through our menstruating years. And when we allow ourselves to be receptive, to open, but really to take pause in this life that's full of noise and chaos and to-dos and running around, when we pause that the realm of life and we get really quiet, we find that we can tap into just an immeasurable amount of not only information, but vitality and power and beauty. And so a moon lodge traditionally invites a woman in when she's on her moon time every month for anywhere from 3 to 7 days. And we rest and we allow our bodies to rest and to do what it's doing at that time, which is purify, release, let go, but also it's a time where we begin to rebuild our body and prepare it once again for pregnancy each month. So our body is going through a phenomenal amount of work. It requires a lot of energy. And so when women give themselves this time, we find that we are immediately healthier. Our hormonal balance is stabilized, which stabilizes our mood, which allows our minds to relax, and stress leaves us, and we're able to return to our family and to our life, rejuvenated, full on, in our full strength. And I often ask, and I'll ask you to put in the chat, imagine if you could have, if you're a woman, 4 days, give or take, every month, where you were removed from the duties of life, taken care of by other women, are taking care of your children, perhaps your family, the cooking, the food, the house, the work. Your boss says, yep, take those 4 days every month as part of your needed physical and mental personal time. If we had 4 days every month, how would that change your life and the life of your family? What could you bring to your family that you don't already bring? How much more could you bring in the way of energy and focus and attention and love and patience and compassion and time? Just put in the chat,
like a word or two, how would this change life for you if every time you were on your menstrual cycle, you could retire into a moon lodge or a room or go on retreat and rest and be either alone or surrounded by other women, and the current encouragement and the sacredness of other women? Yeah. In our culture, in this modern day, it is nearly incomprehensible. Josie says, gain my center and my inner knowing. Absolutely. So I'd love to hear from all of you. Keep throwing that in. And for the men in the room, what would that look like from your perspective? If your mom, your sister, your friends, your wife, your partner, at that time, how might she come back to you and to the family? Lisa says calming. So the big secret, that's not so secret, is that traditionally this was the norm. This was the expectation, in fact, that women would separate themselves from the community, from the family, from the tribe, for many, many reasons. One, because they recognized that it was imperative for a woman to rest during her bleeding time. Secondly, amongst the men, and the ceremonies that might be happening during the time of her mooning, her moontime power is such that as her energy reverses, so all of us men and women, our energy spirals upward. When a woman begins her moon cycle, it reverses and it spirals down as we draw energy from the body through our uterus and bleed toward the earth. This is represented in our cosmic universe. We can see how the moon affects the tides, the waves, the waters. Likewise, we're 80% water as women, men too, but the moon moves our waters, moves our moon time. So we're powerfully connected to this flow of energy from moon to earth. And because we ground the energies that are around us, the community might be in a space of ceremony, or harvest, perhaps labor work on some level, and those energies are lifting up toward the sun. They're being drawn by the sun, upward, skyward. And a woman coming into that labor or to that ceremony will ground the energy and the vitality of labor that's happening in the community. So women separated because our power would ground that prayer that's going up, or ground that strength and vitality of the men who are moving out into the hunt or into the harvest or into the planting. It would ground the energy, the playful time of the children. And we can see this in our society because this has been taken away from a woman's experience in a family and called by many other names. And it starts to look like things called, oh, she's on the reg, or she's moody, or she's difficult during her moon time, or she's in pain, or she's or depressed, or not feeling well on her moon time, on her menstrual cycle, on her period, or oh gosh, so many stories, many of familiar with. And PMS is a construct of our inability as women to take care naturally and organically of this very beautiful and magical time that comes through us and for us every month. And if we were able to rest our bodies, if we were able to retreat into the company of other women, if we were able to eat the foods that help the body's purification and also revitalize the body. If we were able to do these things, PMS would not exist. PMS is a fairly modern construct. Not to say that there weren't forms of physical response that happened for women traditionally as well, but because they were in the Moon Lodge, they weren't affecting others around them that then had a negative view that gave this feedback unworthy or dirty or somehow wrong or difficult, they were able to be held by other women who understood her pain or her emotional movement, because those emotions, those hormones are so moved by the moon, so moved by the work that the body is going through during that menstrual cycle. So what has been created in our culture unhealthy or diseased in some way, this very natural process of bleeding, when we return to a very natural state of taking care of our body during our menstrual cycle, we'll see that the PMS, it calms or it dissipates altogether, or it's seen or felt in a very different way, in a way that would be very natural. And really, frankly, so let me just read a few more. Shelley says if she had that time, she would be feeling more connected. Michelle, she would have time to increase self-awareness and be more connected with the Mother Earth, herself, and her higher power. Absolutely. Bhavya says she would be feeling more relaxed and rejuvenated. And Guy, in a more balanced life dynamic. Absolutely. Likewise with the a men's lodge. It might be traditionally, they might be part of the warrior lodge or part of the hunter's lodge or part of the medicine lodge. But the men would gather as men in the power that men bring through their hormones, through their vitality, through their testosterone, through the way they think, through the needs that they need to come forth with as powerful men in the community. They would gather and be supported likewise by other men, and the young men. So like the young girls in a moon lodge, an example of maturing into their manhood and be held in a way that women and mothers cannot hold their sons after a certain age, because as their testosterone rises, they need to be met by men who can see them the way that we need women to see our daughters. So indeed, I would completely agree with Guy, in a more balanced life dynamic, when the women understand the teachings of the men, and they're taking care of those aspects of their life and gender, then they bring balance back into the family, back into the community, back into one another's lives. And now in our current culture, as men learn the teachings of the women and women learn the teachings of the men, we can begin to understand and hold for what our partner or our father or a son or daughter or brother or sister needs. And so it's really important, as I said earlier, for men to learn the women's teachings. Likewise, it's important for women to learn the men's teachings, but not to insert ourselves into the men's lodge, or as men, not to insert ourselves into the women's lodge, but to share in this way so that there's understanding, but not feel that we have some inherent women to enter into a men's lodge, or that men have some inherent right to enter a woman's lodge, that this is sacred space based on much more than just simply our gender identification. It has deep roots in a biological truth to which we are born. And so our hormones really we can bring our full self into our community. So this is all that we're diving into today, and so much more. I'd like to give just a little bit of my story, how I personally came into these teachings, and a beautiful story of a grandmother, elder, mentor, teacher who blessed not only my life but the lives of many when she presented these teachings. And Guy knows this story well. He happened to be with me on this weekend. So to go back just a little bit, my matrilineal heritage is of the Dakota, the Santee tribe of the Dakota, which is part of the Sioux Nation, or the Lakota, the Dakota, and the Nakota. I wasn't raised in a traditional family, but my uncle would often come from the reservation and full regalia, turquoise, very typical look you might imagine. And so very early on, I had an awareness and also a curiosity, but also a very natural connection to my native ancestry. And in my very early 20s, I found my way back to my lineage through a beautiful teacher and mentor, Barbara Scudiero, who was my teacher for many, many years. And as time went by, and I began to work with more and more teachers and have more and more experiences upon the path on the Red Road, I found myself traveling up to Canada to the ceremony and to the land of Grandfather William Commanda, who was a chief of the Algonquin Nation and holder of the sacred wampum belts of the prophecy of the seven sacred fires. So a lot of history, but it was beautiful week-long ceremonies. One year, the men gathered and erected a moon lodge for the women. And had been traditionally, something like 11, 12, 13, 18 sweat lodges that were erected on the land for the many, many days of ceremony. But there wasn't a moon lodge for many, many years. Be a sweat lodge, a men's lodge, and also a moon lodge for women. And I remember the morning of the first fire and the uncle coming forward and talking about the men gathering to erect this beautiful cedar lodge for the women. It would be a place that we could return over and over again and receive the traditional teachings from the grandmothers of the community. And if we were on moontime, if we were on our bleeding time, spend our time, because a woman who is on her moon time, as I said, reverses that energy, that flow of power. And so we don't enter a sweat lodge during the time of our menstruation. So with tears just flowing, that fire was lit that morning, and it was a gift back to the women that had been, in a way, not taken from us, but not remembered and not known. And just a powerful grandmother came up from Mexico, and she entered into that moon lodge, and she only spoke Spanish. Few of us spoke Spanish, most of us not. There were women from all over the world, some French speaking, on and on, all over the world. She started speaking in Spanish. She started teaching, and she had a translator who was barely keeping up with her. She was speaking so fast, but she was giving these powerful teachings, and she asked somebody to bring a bucket of water from the stream was next to the lodge and bring that bucket in. And then she started asking women to bring up to her tampons and menstrual pads and bring them to her. And she started wringing out our menstrual pads and tampons in this bucket of water. And all the time she's just talking, a million miles and going in and out of song and singing and bringing this bucket of water into this beautiful crimson bucket of powerfully blood-filled, incredible essence of all of these women. And we were just packed into this moon lodge. And most of us, from the States, we're both amazed and excited and also like freaking out, because we had been through the AIDS epidemic. We had been through, decades and decades and decades of teaching that you put on rubber latex gloves and you don't touch blood. And, and here she is in her bare hands, just like in this water full of our blood, singing and teaching. And it was a total awakening of the power and the magic, but also the natural health of our blood as women. And that knowing has been taken from us as women, at least in this culture, for many, many, many generations. And in that moment, a return to understanding how beautiful and how precious and how important our moon time is. And later in the presentation, I'm going to give you a few very practical teachings. What do we do with that bucket of water filled with our power, with our blood? And there are sacred ceremonies that that we move through each month with that blood, but also beautiful with the us and offer that blood water to a tree or to the plants or to our gardens and let it nourish the earth. When women, of course, on their moon time would go out to Mother Earth, someone said earlier, more connected to the earth, they would simply lift up their skirt and sit on the earth and they would bleed into the earth, and there would be no plastic product, tampons and pads wrapped in plastic wrappers that are now, part of what's destroying our Mother Earth and our water. The amount of plastic and we know is just tremendous. We would just simply retreat out onto the earth and sit and rest and bleed directly into the earth, which would nourish the soil and the grasses and the plants and the herbs. So these were the teachings of grandmother Margarita, and a few years later, I would take my vision quest in Peru in the Andes trail. And through my 4 days of vision quest, what came through the calling very powerfully was to reawaken the Moon Lodge, to reawaken those ageless and ancient teachings of the grandmothers, and re-erect a consistent Moon Lodge, not one that just comes here or there at some gathering weekend in Canada, but something that would begin to teach. And now in my 21st year of offering Moon Lodge, every single month, the first Sunday, every month for 21 years, I have little girls who are now off to college that have come up and through this Moon Lodge, and young women who've become mothers and their daughters are now with us, and they've been here through their pregnancy, and grandmothers who came in who never had such a rite of passage, never had these teachings, and stepped into the center of the circle and returned to their youth, being 7, returned to being a maiden of her first menstrual cycle, returned to the ceremony of becoming a mother. And now as a grandmother, I'm thinking of a beloved elder grandmother, Kathy. She speaks of not ever having these blessings and how they've healed her now. She's in her 80s. And in the 14 years that she's been attending, her life and her health and her vitality has completely shifted. I've had women come into the Moon Lodge who are well into their menopause, but have a lot of internal, emotional, psychological damage from their menstruating years, and took that rite of passage as a maiden, took up her red shawl, and several of them began bleeding again after years of being in menopause. And they came to tell me about how they were able to have at least 1 or 2 more opportunities to honor their moon time in a way that they never had before. And I've had young women, their PMS going through ceremony has completely cleared the pain or the emotional distress of their menstrual cycle is calm and clear, and they're now honoring and enjoying their monthly bleeding time. So this is all of the promise of what we are when we return to these ancient teachings and begin to honor fully this time of our menstruation. And so I would love to hear again from you in the chat. Have you had any of these kinds of rite of passage, or been involved in them, or seen them, or known about them? Let me know if you have any experience in this type of honoring, either for yourself or for your children or for if you would. Yvonne, nope, it was not discussed. Indeed, that has, as I said, so unfortunately been for so many women, particularly in our culture, the truth. Josie, not to that extent, but so valuable for Saphira and to prepare way better than it was for me. Yes, Josie, exactly, precisely my passion in offering these teachings, not only today, but for the last 21 years, that our daughters, our nieces, even our neighbors, the children, our granddaughters, will have a different experience than we had, but also so that our sons, my son is now 21. He was raised up in the Moon Lodge. He didn't enter the Moon Lodge, but he was present around. We and the brothers to join us for feasting. He was raised around the Moon Lodge. He this summer just had his vision quest, and how he will be able to stand with his future wife or a girlfriend, and for his mom, now and as I age, will be so different than his peers. And so our young men, our sons, must also learn these teachings so that they don't in any way make their wife or sister or mother or friends feel, all of those things that when one doesn't understand the beauty and the power, just through their own lack of knowing, might energetically offlet. Lisa, same, relied on friends for support. Yes, Bhavya, I've only learned these valuable lessons from you. Blessings to your grandmother, Bhavya, for sharing these teachings with you. And so it's really up to us as women, to seek and learn and educate ourselves, and then to share with the men in our lives these teachings. I've had so many women for so many decades come to me frustrated, hurt, confused, why they weren't allowed in ceremony. And then simply saying, you're on your moon time, or you're on your period, you can't be here, go away. And because these women didn't understand why, they were offended, or they were hurt, or they were very angry. And sometimes women would then stand and know, I have every right to be here as you do, and I'm going in the lodge anywhere. I'm going to participate in the ceremony anyway. And then there's this tension between men and women, because men are men and aren't given the teachings of the Moon Lodge. They're not given the teachings of the women. There are many, many men, even now, in ceremony and on the reservations, that they don't know the teachings for the women. They know the women can't be there, but they don't know why. And so they don't know how to communicate to the women what is happening, and why that protocol is. And men can explain to a woman, that protocol is there because we're honoring you, because you are more powerful than this ceremony, and we want to honor you in a place where your power can lift this ceremony. So often women who are on their moon time will be placed outside of the ceremonial circle, in a circle, because it creates an energetic container, if you will. The energy is coming down on the outside of the circle, as the energy in the center of the circle is going up, and the prayer is going up. So oftentimes women will either be in a moon lodge holding space, or during the community ceremony in a circle around the ceremony, which is happening in the center. So these are two ways that, if women could be told by men who understand, you are powerful right now, allow us to honor, as opposed to, you can't be here, or you're dirty right now, or you're purifying right now, or your energy makes the ceremony not work. We also hear this reflection in our relationships, or from coaches, girls who are in sports are asked to not acknowledge that they're on their moon time, that they're on their bleeding time, that they need to train differently, or compete for. They're asked to just keep going per usual. And so now, and this has been true for my nieces, sadly, they began birth control because they wanted to regulate their menstrual cycle so that they could play sports. And because my sister wasn't in alignment at that time with these teachings, my influence wasn't followed, and I had to with much pain in my heart, watch my nieces get onto birth control at a very young age. And what we're seeing now is women who've been on birth control for many, many years, or really on birth control at all. The research is starting to now show the issues with infertility and the hormonal complications around menopause are now showing this result of having been on birth control for any length of time, not only for a long period of time. And because women are not given the opportunity to rest during their moon time, they're shutting their moon time off through birth control, starting at a very young age. And we need, as young women, as girls, those of you who are mothers with daughters, our girls need those hormones full on to complete the development of organs and to give balance to their hormones for the future as they age. A young girl who just starts her moon time, she is not fully developed yet. She seems to be, she may not grow too much taller, she may not fill out too much more, but her seed is not fully developed for many years after her menses begin. And now that we have girls starting to menstruate at age 11, age 10, age 9, because of the hormones in our water, environmental factors, who knows all the reasons for that, our girls are not fully developed. And they're being put on birth control, not only to regulate pregnancy, but to regulate the cycle itself, in many cases, to shut that cycle down. And so it is imperative for the long-term health of a girl that she learns to regulate not only her cycle naturally, which means to honor it, and rest and eat properly, but also to regulate her sexuality so that she doesn't need to rely on birth control to regulate the potential for pregnancy. And so all of these details go deep. I can give, weeks and weeks of webinars on all of those details to give you the overview. But our health as women is absolutely linked to our period and how we attend to our menstrual cycle from the very beginning, from the time that it starts. I have a few comments here. Lisa says, once I heard it referred to as heavenly water from the book you recommended, it all changed for me. Yes, the same book. Years ago, I think Lisa and I had a conversation. I recommended this book, and our menstrual cycle is referred to as heavenly water in the ancient Chinese tradition. Again, so beautiful, such a different shift in perspective for those of us who were raised to look at it as something dirty or unworthy. Yvonne says, I was put on birth control at 16 to regulate heavy periods. I had so many issues. So to confirm there what I was sharing, so true for so many women. So many issues that come through women's health are only maybe just beginning to be related to how we care for our menstrual cycle from the very beginning. And the more Western medicine, medical science digs deeply into this conversation, the more they're going to be able to with health, really with accuracy and with intelligence. But our culture around this menstruating time will need to radically shift. And that radical shift is looking at women during her moon time and honoring her. And that starts with each of us, rather than coming into the workforce and trying to compete with men or as men. We're not like men. We are not men. We must rest our bodies. We are going to go through cycles of pregnancy where we need to be giving our full attention and health to this child that is growing within us, and then to the nursing, to the milk with which we'll be nursing our children. And so though men and women we consider ourselves and in harmony, we are not the same. And this is a cultural shift. This is a piece of feminism that has not served women well. And because it's not served women well, feminism hasn't served men well, likewise. And again, that's a whole nother webinar that I would love to give and speak about in the Moon Lodge. What has been taken from men in the course of feminism is equal to that which has been taken away from women. And that is not at all to discount the very early feminist ideology. All of that was pure and beautiful empowerment that we as a culture and as a world needed to understand, and continues to be needed in many cultures that still devalue women in daily life. But in the States, in America, it has moved so far away from its original essence, which is just know and value what women are bringing to the table. Just that. And it was a way to regain that which had been lost traditionally, as passing to the mothers who are passing to the daughters our power and our worth and our value as women. And so, this is a much deeper, larger I'm just touching on it. It has its powerful place, but we also need to recognize where it's taken us off course as women and bring the two together in a beautiful balance. The empowerment of women with the honoring of women and what comes through, taking away what comes through us, which is our bleeding time, and regulating it or asking it to stop in some way. Bhavya, who is the author of the book? Xiaolin Zhao. I'll put that in the chat a little bit later. I'll write it out for you, but here's another look at that book. And Bhavya, when you're back to the yurt, it's up on my shelf, so I'll bring it out for you then also. Yvonne says, I never made the connection till now. Feel free to expand on that, Yvonne, which connection. I think I know which one you're talking about, but I want to be sure. Bhavya, thank you. You're welcome. Okay, so moving along. Wow, there's lots that I want to share. Again, if you have any specific questions, please drop them into the chat. What I would like to do now is just take a moment, and I'm going to put you into breakout rooms for just 6 minutes, and to give you an opportunity to really share. This is a priceless part of the Moon Lodge ceremony, is that as women, our voice can be heard, we can share, we can talk about our experience. So this is how it's going to go. I'm going to put you in pairs. I'm going to have you choose who goes first in the share. By who, let's see, who started their menstrual cycle at the earliest age. That's how you'll decide who goes first. If you were 16 or 11 or 14. So who started earliest will go first. We'll share first. And then just share one experience that you've had, either positive or challenging, due to your menstrual cycle. And then each of you share, last minute, just reflect back to one another, something of beauty, something of power that you recognize in the one that you're speaking with. So those are the three things. Just choose who goes first, share something about your experience with moontime, with menstruation. For my men in the room, it could be something your mother or a friend or some experience you've noticed as a male. And with a beautiful compliment about her or his power or beauty or articulation. So I'm going to send you into those rooms here, and you've got just 6 minutes, okay? So this will be quick, and then we're going to come back into the teachings. So how many of us? There's 8, so I'm going to put us in. Okay, here we go. And let's see. Here we go. Welcome back. We'll just wait for everyone to get here. Josie, so glad you could meet Lisa. Lisa, so glad you could meet Josie. So fun. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Put in the chat there just a little something special about the room for you. Something just simple. What really landed for you? What did you get from that time of sharing? Go ahead and put that up in the chat, everyone. And then I'm going to read just a little bit from this beautiful book. Bhavya, I put the title and the author there for everyone. Bhavya, Michelle says, Bhavya loves to stay with the flow of nature just as I do. Beautiful. Josie, I've loved this hour. Thank you. And meeting Lisa. What I got was something a bit hard, the use of tampons, thinking that pads would be a better way to go. Yeah, thank you for bringing that forward. I haven't used tampons for decades. As I dig deeper into the teachings, let me just mute everyone for background noise. We want our flow. We want our flow to fully exit the body as it's moving. And when we bleed into a tampon or a diva cup or any of those kinds of things, we hold that which is being purified inside our body. So the essence or the vitality or the chi that would let go is being held and reabsorbed on a certain level back into our body. So healthiest practice is definitely to let that flow move freely into a pad or onto the earth, and change even the pad regularly so that the blood isn't sitting next to the skin for long periods of time. Again, of course, may seem to many of you like common sense, but 100% pure organic cotton to the best of your ability. Try to stay away from synthetics or plastics in your menstrual products, because all of that is absorbing in and through the skin and back into the body. So very important for our young girls. They don't know what they don't know yet. So when you really offer and you give, as parents, we often, tell our children what to do, what not to do. But it's when we give our children the why that they begin to listen and trust us fully, and they also begin to gain in wisdom. And the stages of rebellion that some kids go through will be much less if from a very, very young age we answer their questions, and when we give teaching or an instruction, that it's always followed with the why, so that they can understand it intellectually, and they're not simply being told what to do, they're being cared for. There's a reason behind what we're telling them or asking them to do or not do. Lisa, being a mom comes first. Oh, I could not agree with that more. Bhavya, feeling warmth and connected with Michelle. It was lovely. Yes. Yvonne, we were given women or men. We didn't know what we didn't know. Yes, exactly. Guy, medicine has some fault in. Yeah. Thank you, Bob. Yes. So all of that, these conversations are what is going to lend and shift and move all of those things. So please, this recording will be available afterwards. Share it with your sisters and your brothers and your mothers and your aunties and your friends, and let's have these conversations really out for the benefit of all of us, but also for these generations who are going to be coming up and through us. So important, so needed. I'm going to read a little bit from this just to give, just another dimension to all that I've been talking about. She says, this is the author speaking. The little-eyed man managed to find out about menstruation made me curious of it. I wondered how it would feel. My mother noticed me rubbing my breasts on occasion and asked if they felt itchy. She told me that I was growing up and developing breasts to feed a baby. She said that if my breast felt a little itchy or painful, I should warm some vegetable oil on my fingertips and gently massage them. My mother told me that soon I would be experiencing something special every month, and that as I was mature, with it would come new responsibilities. I had the sense that I was no longer supposed to be a naughty little girl, that I was to look after myself and be more considerate to others. My mother said that I would bleed from my vagina and that it might be painful and I might feel nauseous, but not to worry. There were herbs that would help make my body strong and prevent any illness. In preparation, she gave me a 2-inch high pile of sheets of coarse rice paper and a with a rectangular cloth strip that was connected to a string waistband. Attached to the cloth was a flap that looped over the string and fastened with a button. My mother showed me how to fold the sheets of paper into narrower strips and how to adjust the width for my comfort. When I wanted to change the paper pad, I would simply undo the button, remove the soiled paper, and place clean sheets on the cloth. I felt a little embarrassed when my mother explained all this to me. It brought me into my consciousness the possibility of boyfriends, marriage, and babies. Perhaps because I was a little slower in developing than my friends, I felt somewhat shy around this new phase of my life. But my mother told me it was all a natural part of growing into a woman. So you can see there how this child is set up with very clear and precise instruction around how to use those menstrual products, with the gateway opening, the opening gateway into this world for her is that something special is about to happen to her. And then her concerns are relieved. If the breasts are itchy, there's a remedy for that. There's warm vegetable oil. If she has pain or nausea, it's okay. Let me know. There's herbs. There's something we can do to help you through that. Nothing to be afraid of. Yeah, there's a remedy. There's a holding. You'll be taken care of. And then in her shyness, she's reminded that this is part of becoming a woman. And so it's okay to be shy. But in that, she's not only considering her own moment of rite of passage, but she simply says that it's her aware to be more considerate of others, which we know that when we care for the self, when we have compassion and respect for the self, we will immediately and naturally have more compassion and respect and honor for others. So we see how just this simple holding of a mother or an elder for a daughter or a child, could be a granddaughter, could be a niece, completely will change the trajectory of how she feels about herself and how she treats others going forward. Really powerful. And right after this story, the author drops into some really ancient science. I'm not going to read in depth, but I just want to bring your consciousness. The evolving feminine cycle was referred to in the Huangdi Nizheng centuries before the birth of Christ and the common era. To the Nijing, a woman's life comprises a series of 7-year cycles. So this is true in the esoteric science and my traditional teachings, and here we find it true also in ancient China. At the age of 7 years, a girl's ki, and the ki means energy, begins to thrive. By age 14, it should be strong and robust so that a girl can transform into a woman with the onset of her menses. The body needs to be reassured that we are vital and that our ki and blood are at their fullest before the start of an ongoing and regular loss of blood. So how we attend to our energy, which has on the physical level a deep relationship to our blood. I was just teaching in my couples workshop about the form nourishing kidneys, and how to take care of our kidneys on a deep level has, because of its relationship to the purification of blood, and the blood has relationship to our physical vitality in our reproductive organs, things like infertility or frigidity or lack of sexual desire, men impotence, or also lack of sexual desire, either in their younger years or as they age, come back around and are very related to the chi within our kidneys and the purification and the purity and the vitality in our bloodstream. So we know that as I've been talking, a woman's menstrual cycle, if it's healthy, her vitality will be healthy. Likewise for men, if their blood is healthy, their sexual vitality will be healthy. We know that an erection isn't possible without good blood flow, right? It's the blood that is a powerful mover of an erection for men. So as we consider the health of our sexuality, which includes our menstruating years, we must look to all of the systems of the body and how we care for those systems through diet, rest, through the taking care of our chi, our vitality. That might be taking a walk in nature. That might be acupuncture. That might be practicing Qigong. That might be understanding Reiki and using Reiki for self-healing and self-vitality, or performing Reiki for your daughters as they're preparing for their menstrual cycle each month. So in these many ways, we can become ever more educated and conscious about the variety of factors that lend to a healthy menstruation, and how a healthy or unhealthy menstruation lends to a healthy or unhealthy emotional state, mental state, and energetic state. So with that, I have for all of you, for anyone who's interested, a PDF. I wrote this many, many, many years ago. Writing needs to be updated. I would add a lot more to it, but I'm going to make this available to you. I'll put a link up here in just a moment. But I'd like to, I don't know what it is, page 6 or something. I have a section called a personal moon lodge. To inspire the energy of moon lodge in daily life, a practice of some or all of this ageless wisdom, women's wisdom, is encouraged. These are practices, some of them very simple, that you can begin to do right now so easily in your home. You can teach them to your daughters, your granddaughters, your sisters, your friends. Some of these are going to be great even for the men in the room for many reasons, and that will be really obvious here in just a moment. And so by way of continuing to participate with all of you, I'm going to have you respond in the chat with me. So be ready to type. Before we do that, we don't have any new comments. Okay, so in the chat, do you start your day in gratitude and end your day in gratitude? Just a quick, easy yes or no. So as an extension of gratitude is vitalizing on all levels. For women, when we begin to have gratitude for our menstrual cycle, we bleed. When our daughters are bleeding, gratitude, show them appreciation for this time. Just that will completely change a perspective and a flow of energy. If you're beginning to thank your body for bleeding every month, rather than what I've described is so often true in our culture, shut it down, make it go away, wish we didn't have it. That simple act of expression will set you up for a healthy moon time. So we have yes, usually, sometimes, most of the time, excellent, not always. So those of you, my women in the room, have you been showing gratitude for your menses, for your moon time? Do you thank your blood for flowing, for your body, for doing what it's designed to do in a natural, healthy way? You thanking your menstrual cycle every month? Drop that into the chat. As I read the next one, you can prepare a special place in your home or garden that is reserved for a moontime altar. You can meditate and journal there. So I have some notes. I have one yes. Not enough and now too late. Never too late, never too late. Josie, into menopausal years today in today's presentation, but we continue to cycle hormonally, even though our body no longer bleeds. And we can every day go back and still give gratitude for the years that we did bleed. You have a beautiful daughter that came through because you had a healthy menstrual cycle and you were able to bear children. Every time you see her, you can give thanks for your menstrual cycle, which has now moved into your menopause and too late, never too so the preparation of a special place where for your moon time only, again, is an extension of how our energy reverses. So the medicine that I use in other ceremony, I'm a water pourer for Sweat Lodge, I'm a pipe carrier, all of those tools and sacred objects that I use are separate from my ceremonial tools and objects that I use during my moon time. They're in two completely separate cabinets, and I don't mix them at any point. When I start my moon time, I close the cabinet on my sacreds and I open my moon time altar. And when I'm bleeding, those shawls or those candles, all of those kinds of things I use only when I'm on my bleeding time. So the energy between those two sacred groups of objects don't mix and mingle. And so you'll also find that if you have that special place that you return to over and over every month, it begins to build an energy and it holds a container for you. And you'll feel like you're entering a truly sacred place of honor if you have one place that you bleed, or you set that up if you're past your own moon time, set something like that up for your daughters. Create or find a rite of passage ceremony to honor motherhood and menopause. So, like I said, you can always go back and give yourself this ceremony or find a gathering that gives these ceremonies. And even if you're in menopause, but you have something you would like to complete or heal, go back and take those ceremonies that you were not offered in your youth. I'm going to share my screen quick and just show you. Many of you don't live nearby. Those who do, I think, my lodge. But this link is up if you want to bring it up on your own. But this is about the Moon Lodge. But what I want to really bring your attention to right now is the Moon Lodge. So through the year, each month or each season, each cycle of the year reflects what's happening also for a woman as she moves through her own cycles each month. So in December, I'm going to go through these briefly, but for your awareness, how you can bring your consciousness, but also prepare it, if you will, or a conversation you might have with your daughter each month. In December, we start our year, and this is where we have a rite of passage for our girls who are turning 7, have just recently turned 7, or of course, those who want to revisit at any age. And the winter solstice begins our year because the light just begins to return. And although we don't have the full springtime, we know that the seeds deep under the ground have already cracked open and the process of life has already begun. So our year begins in December with the winter solstice. And then in January, we move into this time. Winter is this time of hibernation, dream time. It's a time when especially during our menstrual cycle, that veil is super, super thin. It's a time of vision through the February. We start looking at our purpose, those visions that are coming to us through the winter, that are giving us our vision for the year ahead, if you will. We delve deeply into purpose, and all of this you can go back and find on my website, and apply it to your year. In March, at the spring equinox, is when we honor our maidens who have just begun their moon time. They step into the we wrap a shawl. They're gifted from the four directions by aunties who speak to them of their power and their gifts and their talents. The elders see them, and they're given menstrual products, but also a book to help guide them, and several gifts that will help them on their way. In April, we bring in what I was talking about, what is so traditional in the Moon Lodge of our ancestors. It was a place where they would learn the techniques of crafting, that might be beading or sewing moccasins, or depending on what your lineage or tradition is. It's a place where women would learn the teachings of the women. So in April, we have a crafting lodge. In May, it's Beltane. Beltane is the lighting of those fires. So we bring in the teachings of sexuality for our maidens and for all the women in the circle, and how to really honor ourselves as we bring that altar, that sacred altar of coming into union with the masculine, which then always has the potentiality for bringing forth new life. So what I taught my son is that when he's ready and he chooses to take on sex as part of his life and his choice, that he understands that with every sexual encounter is the choice to become a father. It's inherent. There's not any I was interested in birth control. There's no birth control that is 100% effective. So when our children understand that their sexuality, for you and your tradition, may or may not be about morality, may or may not be about religion, may or may not be about spirituality or tradition. And all of that is good, what you pass to your children, so they understand that container. But a container that's also really is that each time they come to their sexuality, they're coming into this choice of bringing new life into the world. And that should be part of how they consider taking care of themselves and their partnership. In June is our mother rite of passage. So we talk about motherhood. Our mothers who are either pregnant or have had a child come into the center of the circle, and we honor our mothers with the blessing way. Motherhood. In July, we honor the waters in celebration of the father. This is the time we invite all of the men, the sons, the husbands, the uncles, the brothers to come and join us down at the water. And it's a much longer teaching. I gave this teaching several months ago. You can find it on my YouTube channel as a recording. I talked about sacred water, sensual life. And women are water carriers. We carry water. And the men are water protectors. They protect the women who carry the water or who bring forth new life. So as we consider taking care of our lakes and our streams and our drinking water and our oceans, as women, we must understand our responsibility to the water. Just likewise, men must understand their responsibility to keeping our waters pure and healthy. In our August Moon Lodge is our retreat. So that those of you who would like to come and spend 4 days swimming and in women's teachings and in Moon Lodge and learning and in companionship and sisterhood, every August we gather for a weekend. In September is our fourth and our last rite of passage for women. It's our crone rite of passage ceremony. It's for the women who are 13 moons past their last menses. And this is a time when to the middle of the circle, and we see them and honor them as the grandmothers, the wisdom keepers, and those who now move from being potentially mothers of their biological children and grandmothers of their biological grandchildren, but a grandmother for all the children. Now their responsibility is to share their wisdom with all the children. And it's a beautiful, empowering time in, again, our whole is to silence our elders rather than come to the feet of the elders and ask them for their wisdom and their guidance. In October, we honor our ancestors and the beauty of those who've laid this path before us. And then in November, we conclude our year, often with the big grandmother drum comes in, and we celebrate death and transformation and rebirth. And representation every month of that death that happens we're releasing the potential for pregnancy. But then there's a transformation that's happening for us. We're going to begin to rebuild that lining of our uterus, and then the revitalization of that transformation. We birth, or we come out of that moon lodge ready for a new month, fresh, new. And so each life is a cycle as we move through the 4 seasons. And it really helps prepare us and our young ones as we age for the eventuation of death itself, death of the entire physical body, and how that in itself is also simply a transformation and a rebirth into another form. So through this cycle, each year, every year, our children grow and that they really are connected to the cycles of life rather than connected to the fear or the dread of what's coming in the future. So Josie, we have a Bhavya. If I create my own ceremony at home, if I'm not able to make it to the lodge, which medicine should I use? You can use the medicine, Bhavya, that we've spoken about. We use in Moon Lodge. I know that you have sage and cedar. Cedar is considered one of the women's medicine. Birch also, to burn in a small fire. The bark of birch is really powerful. So Bhavya, I think that's a question that we can go more deeply into when I see you privately, or ask that within a Moon Lodge. But water can be a medicine. We can just bless ourselves with water. Lighting a candle is medicine. There's no right or wrong medicine. I say within your Moon Lodge, and depending on your tradition and your history, the elders tell us that the medicine is in our own backyard. So you want to become connected to medicine that really speaks to you and through you and fortifies your body and your heart and your energy and your emotions. Josie's saying, thank you so much. I'm a little tired. I have a tired little one now and have to get off, get her to bed. I want to come off to bed now. Good night, America. See you all again. Good, Bobby. Thank you so much for conducting the session. You're welcome. So let me before folks really start heading out, we're going to close in just 1 minute. It's almost time. But here is a link. If you click on that link, it will take you to a form. And if you would like a copy of this PDF, there's many more little at-home recommendations or ceremonies. Spend some time to tell your heart with your internal mother of love and intuition. It goes on and on for really a full page. Seek natural therapies for the healing of your body until your wellness regime is fully preventative. So there's lots of great guidance. It's totally free. Just get on that form, request it. An email will automatically be generated and sent to you, and you can download it. There's also a place if you want to be on my email list to reserve my upcoming book or join the lodge, but you don't have to check those. Whatever's of interest to you, check out that form. And in conclusion, I would just love to end by unmuting everyone and ask each of you just to offer one big takeaway from today, or maybe an action step, something that you'd really like to take on from our time together and implement into your own life. And then just one bit of gratitude. So, no, just the thought of what you'd like to take from this session, and then a thought around gratitude, and that's how we'll end our time together today. And I think I'll just call out based on how it's showing up on my screen. So let's start with Bhavya. I'll ask you to unmute, and we'll just finish with a share.
Oh my God, I think the session was so helpful. I learned a lot, like always, and as you know, how much I appreciate and acknowledge your work, and it's great. So I have immense gratitude in my heart for you for conducting these sessions and really so in this fast moving world where we have completely lost our track, in technology, social media, and always like out, carrying a to-do list, go, do. You always really just help us slow down, go inwards, and align yourself with nature. So it's always good to really just come back to who we really are and feel aligned with nature. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're
I
so
really
welcome, Bhavya.
appreciate it.
Thank you. And Guy, I'll ask you to unmute. Sorry, Guy, you're not muted, or you're still muted. There we go.
I came coming to understand the depth of the universality of the loss of the women's teachings and the understanding of the space that's needed for that. And so I'm really thankful for that because it's very important. And it really, really feels empowering to me because now, I can feel more, have more understanding and in being able to approach even young ladies in these times, that may not understand. So I'm very grateful for that.
Oh, thank you, Guy. Thank you for your share.
Mm.
Beautiful. And Lisa, next.
Thank you. I learned a lot today, and I think I'll start to share gratitude when it's my my cycle every month, and then just I liked the terms, like just a lot of terms that you shared, just help me kind of reframe it and how I can teach to my children, and hopefully help them have an understanding that is beneficial to others, and supporting each other. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Beautiful. Thank you. Michelle.
Oh, I really enjoyed just kind of going with the flow of everything here today. And my background is also part Native American as well as some other traditions. So I was remembering when I would teach yoga, in particular, like apana, that's like the downward flowing energy, which is part of it. Like prana is like upward or all around, or udana. But yeah, the balance of all the different flows. So I think it's very beautiful to just go with the flow of nature.
Beautiful. Thank you, Michelle. Shelley, I'll ask you to unmute.
Yes. You can hear me, correct?
I can.
Great. Yes. I think that what most really I take away from this is that I'm not alone in this journey. And I think it's really cool how often you bring together people and have these monthly ceremonies. And it just reminds me that this is not something I need to go through alone. But, look in my community, look at my family, and realize that there's a lot of us that are, dreaming the same way. And we need to keep it alive. I think that this is something that I've definitely been more connected with in some points in my life than others. And now that I'm having children, daughters that are reaching that age and it's coming back again as being very important, I just really need to grasp on that to energy and help it grow, because I think the same way that I feel, I'm sure there's a lot of women around me that feel the same way. And so we need to give it a voice and a place and be consistent or constant with it. So it's not like a one-time thing, but something we can carry through. And yes, just always love that reminder to be grateful every morning and every evening. When you ask that, it's like, oh, I wish I could type yes into the chat, but that's not true. Like, it's not always present. And so I just love those reminders to keep that gratitude first and foremost. So thank you.
Welcome. Yeah, beautiful. Yvonne.
Hi. I'm kind of mixed with anger about how it's been so suppressed and how different things could have been for me had it not been. But I'm also grateful that people like you are bringing that back, because a lot of stuff happened that probably wouldn't have happened if I knew better. We didn't used to question the medical system, right? We had male doctors and they're quick to write prescriptions even now. And when you were saying about the birth control, and my daughter was, I don't know, probably 16, she was put on it for acne. And for 2 years, and I never thought much about it because I was in a different frame even 5 years ago than now. And then she saw a female doctor because the other doctor was away, and the doctor flipped out and took her off it immediately. So that I'm very grateful for. But you realize that a lot of it starts in the medical system. People like I'm upset that this was taken away from us, and I'm glad now people are being made aware of it. And it's just because of money and power. That's why external power took our power away through marketing. And the whole thing is just really, it's made me think. It's really made me think. So I have mixed emotions, but I'm so glad I attended today. I always am when I attend yours, because I always tell my kids, my daughter, she's like, I want to be a homesteader. And I said, we need to get back. And my goddaughter, all of these kids now, they just want to go back to how it was. And for that, I'm so grateful, because they understand what just the family, the connection to nature and ourselves and earth, they all want that back. So there's so much hope. And when people like you keep these traditions alive, they aren't dead yet. They can be reintroduced, because it's all seen so negative, and half our population has it, and yet it was still taboo in my own house. Like it's. But I'm so grateful. Everything's kind of going back to, we'll call it, I don't know, pre-World War One. When we had more defined roles, and we weren't out having to prove that we were as strong and powerful as men, because we all have different strengths and weaknesses. We're not meant to be strong and powerful that way. We're meant to be strong and powerful in a feminine way. And it's just been a really good reminder. And as a mom, and it's funny because my one daughter, she's going in to be an electrician, which is male dominated, but you still can see where she loves the nature. She loves, like that kind of thing. And she's kind of keeping it separate. And my other daughter, who's a very good role model for her, is very much part of nature, lives in nature. And I see hope. I see a lot of hope for a lot of these traditions coming back, because people are fed up.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
know we're getting poisoned now. When you realize that you are allowing your own kids to get poisoned, you know what I mean? It's been a struggle, but we're good.
Good. Thank you for sharing, Yvonne, and for sharing, the part that comes through is anger too. Let's just take that energy. We can release the negativity of the anger part and use the vitality that anger brings through us to dive deeper into that hope and creating a container that's really different. So, just transmute that anger into energy and pass it on, because you have some teachings now, you have the ability to change the world right now around you. And may we all do that. I just really appreciate all of you for being here and being so receptive and sharing with one another and with me. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'm sure you all have my email address, and you'll have it for sure if you get the PDF. So I'm here. If you're interested more in the Moon Lodge itself, contact me also about that. And then, like I said, I'll get this recording up and out, and feel free to share this around, and let's normalize this conversation in a really beautiful way, so that future Yvonne is speaking to really can manifest. My beloved teacher, Willaroo Waita, talks about, uses the words, he's Peruvian, getting naturalized, returning to the natural ways, where we recognize the sun and the earth and the moon and how these energies flow through us, and we're an extension of this beautiful and powerful universal magic. And so blessings of magic to all of you, and may this really bless you on your way, and bless your children and your grandchildren and the next 7 generations and beyond. I love you all, and see you again soon, I hope. Bye for now.